Hello friends, welcome back to the episode 3, where we come up against the Leagues of Votann, against my arch nemesis Gav, who I've never beaten before. So this is going to be a breakdown of the game I had against Leagues of Votann. Boy, this was a tough game that was literally decided on the final dice roll, which went my way this time, which felt very good. But let's jump into Game 3 against Leagues of Votann for my GT run to my first ever victory. Okay. So, Game 3, at this point I was 2-0 playing up against Gav, who was 2-0. I'd actually kind of hoped that I would avoid Gav until we get to the final table, because he is my arch nemesis. He's beaten me probably 5 or 6 times at this point. Some of them have been very, very close. But I went into this game trying to feel confident. I felt like I'd played him so many times. It's been so close so many times. I felt like this could be the time that I beat Gav. Last time I played him, I really actually felt like I fumbled, because I probably had a play to make, but I ended up moving like a squad of aggressors into the corner of the board to kill a knight. And then when they're in the corner of the board, they can't do any scoring. And I always say, don't put slow moving units into the corner of the board, but I did it. So this time it was time for me to try and get revenge and try to not make any misplays. So that was the list. If you haven't seen the video where I break down the whole list and how I played every single game, then I will link that up above. But yes, this was a 3-point victory. So this is the closest of close games. It literally came down to who got good secondaries in the final turn. Thank God I got something. But here is the Votann list. Now, I'm not super familiar with Votann, but I mean, he did have 5 Sagateurs. They are the cheap Votann transports that have like a sustained las cannon type weapon on them. They're actually quite devastating if he rolls the 6s, and they're very cheap, and they're all going to be full of units, right? There's going to be 2 with Hearthkin Warriors. There's going to be 2 with Berserkers. I think the third one, I think these must be 10-man squads of Hearthkin. So I think they're split across 2 of the Sagateurs had Hearthkin times. And then, so basically, I think it was 3 with Hearthkin Warriors, 2 with Berserkers. He had a Khal, he had a Champion, and then he had the 2 giant squads of Hearthguard. Their shooting is horrific. The plasmas that he's got in one squad are just ridiculous. It's like 2 shots. He can give them sustained. They have a ton of grenades, similar to the aggressor's grenades. Once you stack on those judgment tokens, they do a ton of damage, and then the second squad of Hearthkin have Volkites. So that means dev wounds. They're not probably as scary because no AP, but they're scary still because they dev wounds, and then they have a crap ton of grenades as well. Plus, the Terminators are pretty good in combat as well. They essentially have a power fist, and then he's got the two squads of bikes. So what's kind of funny is my list was a lot of 2s, right? He's got 2 Hearthkin Warriors, he's got 2 Berserkers, he's got 2 sets of bikes, he's got 2 Hearthguard. But the interesting thing was he was actually 40 points under budget, and I spoke to him and he just said that in the Votann list there's very little he could have fit. Like, there's nothing he can put in that fills those last 40 points. So that's where his list was. And it was very, very strong. And I guess this is what his deployment looks like, right? So he's got the 2 squads of bikes, 1 on the flanks, 1 screening, and then the 5 Sagateurs, and they all get like a 9-inch scout move. He actually didn't realize my scouts were behind here, so he did move these things back a little bit. They would have had to stay 9 inches away from the scouts. But yeah, so his scout move lets him spread out, and obviously I have to kill the transports before I can get to anything inside. I think a squad of Berserkers was on each flank. And my thought when I was playing this, right, like being not super familiar with the Votann, the Berserkers are horrific in combat. They have like a strength 9 -2/3 damage. They get a lot of attacks. They also get like an indirect fire that makes potentially my guys move 2 inches less and get 2 inches less on their advance and charge. So I knew the Berserks were a huge problem. So my thought in the early game was like, if I can sacrifice some cheap units like my Outriders or my Jump Intercessors to get rid of the Berserkers, then I can combat everything else in his list pretty effectively except the Hearthguard. And the Hearthguard, I kind of wanted to go second here, because if I go second, I get to react to where he puts his Hearthguard down. So his Hearthguard come down, they probably shoot something and kill it, but I can rapid ingress one of my Jump Intercessors or my Death Company in a position to counter that next turn. So that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be able to use my rapid ingress to counter his 2 squads of Terminators, and then meanwhile, if I've killed his melee, then I can start picking them up over the board. I will have to wither a lot of fire from transports, and I will also have to kill a bunch of transports. But I feel like that part I felt like was maybe doable. But I did lose so many units. As we go through this game, you will see I just lost so much stuff. What was very, very annoying in turn 1 was this unit of jump intercessors, which he had made -1 to move, or -2 to move and -2 to charge. They were able to jump against this wall, and he's got his squad of berserkers just on the other side of that wall. I rolled a snake eyes on this charge, and I believe I'd spent my CP somewhere else. Can't remember when I spent it on, but probably a big misplay, because the snake eyes on the charge meant that I couldn't make the charge. I honestly think if I'd rolled the 3, I'd probably make that charge, because those guys are literally 1.1 inch from the other side of the wall. So maybe I needed like a 4, but this was a super small charge, and I failed it. What I did get with some play here, though, was like my Predator was able to gun down Votann. I think it was his other squad of berserkers, like right across the map. I'm shooting autocannons and las cannons at infantry. I don't care. I'm going to take the -4 EP and I'm going to blow up his infantry. He did hold this because my 3 bikes are being out obsect ever so slightly, I believe. Or I think I held it, but he's going to kill them, right? Unfortunately, people have mentioned before Outriders don't do a lot of killing, and that is very true. And he actually killed my Impulsor in turn 1. So my Impulsor was sitting back here. You can see it here. And he was able to kill that in turn 1, and the company heroes then basically had to disembark and sit over here, and I guess they took a couple of mortal wounds when they disembarked. But not many people killed the Impulsor turn 1, so he was able to move like 2 Sagators around here and kill the Impulsor. And then he's got the other 3 Sagators. So I managed to get rid of 1 Sagator in turn 1. It was okay. It wasn't great. Because they do have a lot of firepower. So in turn 2, literally all I've been able to do is put something over on this objective. Because my very small charge here failed. Do you know what? He's actually got a Sagator behind that building, so I didn't kill any in turn 1. Yeah, I think I did have a horrific turn 1. I remember, I think he's got a wound counter in this one. I think, and then there's a battle shot token on it as well. So it must have. I think this one took down to like 2 wounds, but I didn't kill any of them. It was actually quite bad. I did kill some infantry over here, and a battle shot this other infantry. But yeah, so I tried to do some scoring, and he actually got some very good turn 1 objectives, if I remember correctly. He got like Skewer No Man's Land and Extend Battle Lines, which gave him a very early lead, both on primaries and secondaries, and that's not what I want. I don't want to be feeling like I've got 20 points to make up, but that's exactly what happened in this game. I had a lot of points to make up. So, as we move on, the one saving grace, I suppose, is my Dreadnoughts and my Predators are just indiscriminately killing things every turn. And I think basically what I did was, he dropped in turn 2 a 10-man squad of Hearthguard here. Right, and it was, I believe, the Volkite ones. Yeah, so he dropped the Volkite ones here, and I guess you can notice that all my bikes are gone, and I think all my scouts are gone. Maybe there was a scout or 2 left in here. They're long gone, I guess. So because he dropped them here, and I guess he killed the bikes, fine. And I think he fell this Sagator back from the bikes. There was only 1 guy left in the squad. The Predator had done some work. Then my thought was I dropped a unit of Death Company here in an obscure position in a rapid ingress, and I moved them right up next to the wall. I'd actually thought about moving them the other side of the wall so I could shoot the Infernal Pistols and throw some grenades, and my goodness, I actually put the first guy down there. And of course, being a shrewd opponent, Gav wasn't going to say anything. But if I'd left them there on that side of the wall, next to the 10 Terminators, he said that he would have overwatched them and he would have obliterated them. So by putting them this side of the wall, charging from an obscured position, I guess this is why sometimes it's good to know your opponent. Because I thought that they would take some damage from those Terminators, but I didn't realise just how devastating they would probably end up being. So I was behind in this game. Unfortunately, I still don't have anything over here. And this was a big problem for me in primary. Like, I just did not have primary. Anytime I put stuff into the middle, he was killing it. And I didn't manage to hold this. Probably I would have liked to have my Impulsor and company heroes over there. But I guess my company heroes went mid-board to take out a Sagator. And they are pretty good at killing stuff. Especially with the 9 devastating wound, finest hour, power fist. And I wrapped his other Sagator with this Death Company. And I believe this was a this was an aggressive onslaught wrap. So if we go here, there was a Sagitter here, right? The company heroes come up, they charge it, they blow it up. The Death Company that were here jumped to here. They then also charged it on the other side. So when he disembarked the guys from outside, I was able to use my... Because I charged, I'm allowed to make a pile in. So I pile into that unit with the Death Company. I kill all the guys that come outside. And then I paid my 1 CP to get my 6-inch consolidation and wrap the Sagitter. And the reason behind that was I was desperate to have Death Company alive on his side of the board that he couldn't shoot. And yes, he can shoot the Death Company with the 1 Sagitter it's in combat with, but, you know, he's got bikes, he's got these plasma, or the Volkite Terminators that are left. You can see that I took a lot of losses on that Chaplain squad that charged the Terminators. Although they killed like 8 Terminators, the champion that he had there and the stuff that he had there still managed to kill a lot of my Death Company in return. So I wanted to shut down some of his firepower into the Death Company. I figured if there was a Death Company squad alive here, maybe I can get over to this objective and clear it. The interesting thing on this map was this was the one where objectives disappear, and what's going to happen is in turn 4, this one is disappearing, and in turn 5, this one is disappearing. So if I can get over here, I can get some points, and I should be able to get over here. I was desperate to get over here. But I also knew this was disappearing, so I didn't need to go too hard on this. And I had a single Outrider charge another Sagitter here, again, to limit what it could shoot. I was trying to make it so if he wants to shoot my company heroes, he's going to be -1 to hit because he's in combat, and then potentially they're -1 to wound as well. The company heroes are very survivable, but they did not, I must admit, they did not survive against the Votann because he brought in that horrific squad of plasmas over here, and you can see that all the Death Company are dead. All the company heroes are dead. It turned out that I did not hold the middle again, so for like a 3rd time in a row, I'm scoring like barely anything on primary. Again, I'm still not managing to hold down here. Like, this was a really, really tough game. I did drop down my jump intercessors to touch this objective, but he managed to get over here with, I guess this is a final, I think this was this final Sagitter. God, these things are so annoying. They're like rhinos, but 35 points more, and they have some really decent guns, and the Votann units inside are all really nasty. So I ended up dropping my Sanguinary Guard. If we go down here, they dropped down here as well, and this was super not ideal, right? Because I wanted to drop the Sanguinary Guard somewhere that they could get a charge into the squad of Terminators and get rid of them. I just couldn't get over there. There was nowhere, because he's got a Sagitter here, I think he's got like 1 bike or something hiding behind this wall, so there was no, maybe I could have had them here, but if I'd had them here, I was really risky that he could come here and shoot them, or he could just move up and charge them, and I ended up dropping the Sanguinary Guard here, basically to try and clear some of the board. Before they came down, you know, there's still some remnant Terminators here, I think there's a remnant Berserker, there's a transport here as well. So the Sanguinary Guard came down here, and I lost a few of them in the turn they arrived. Lost 3, in fact. I think I actually lost some of them to an explosion. I think I killed something down here and lost some of them to explosion. But I'm still desperately trying to hold here. The only advantage is maybe now I'm going to be able to hold the middle, but I'm going to take a ton of damage from this unit over here because he was actually able to put 2 judgment tokens on the Sanguinary Guard while they're in reserve. I didn't know you could actually do that, but so I put them in strategic reserve at the start of the game, and he's like, I don't care, I'm going to put 2 judgment tokens on them. So they're permanently +1 to hit and +1 to wound against Sanguinary Guard. And Sanguinary Guard are like the squishiest unit for points, right? At like 31 points a model, they feel horrific when they die. So I really wasn't happy about this. And also, look, I am strung out at this point. And what I mean by that is, like, I've got Dante in the 7 Sanguinary Guard. I've got 1 Predator over here on, like, 7 wounds. I've got a Dreadnought over here. At the end of the game, this thing had 1 wound left, so it's definitely not healthy right now. I've got my little squad of Jump Intercessors. This objective is going to go away at some point. And then he's still got a squad of bikes over here. And the bikes are pretty good. They'll rip through like a squad of Jump Intercessors. So everything about this game was pretty rough, and I felt at this point I don't even know if I can get back into it. I think the one ace I had was my infiltrators have moved up right into this wall. They're kind of hiding, and I was thinking, because I go second, and this victory holding the middle at the end of the game is worth 15 points. There might be a play here where, like, my Predator can kill this one Hearthguard that's over here, or if these Terminators move up, my Predator could kill some, the Ballistas could kill some, the Sanguinary Guard might be able to charge some, and the Infiltrators might just be able to swing this objective to me and get me 15 points at the end of the game. So I was trying really hard to not give up, but a few people had milled around the table at this point, and I think Gav was maybe like, well, you'll see the scores in a minute, I think he was like 20, maybe even 25 points ahead. And most people expect, like, Gav usually wins these events. He's a very, very strong player. He's played for Team Scotland for a while, many years now. So, but I was determined. I was so determined. I was like, I really wanted to fight to the very last man, and I felt like I maybe had a slight chance with a little bit of luck. And luck did definitely come into it. So if we go into turn 5, and I've just noticed that this is rotated incorrectly. So as you can see, he still had his Terminators. I believe I managed to kill all the bikes over here. I think that was from the Predator, the Ballistas, and what was left of like one Jump Intercessor. I've got Dante over here who has 2 Judgment tokens. I have my 4 Infiltrators that were able to come out here and claim this midfield objective. This Ballistas Dreadnought had 1 wound left. I think the dice says something else. It says like 6 or something. He did not have 6 wounds left. I think he had 1 wound left, if I'm remembering correctly. He still had a Sagittар behind this wall. And I pulled the secondary where I need 1 unit in my deployment zone, 1 unit in the middle, and 1 unit in his deployment zone. And by luck, I lost pretty much every Sanguinary Guard except Commander Dante. By some luck, Commander Dante... There's 2 games Dante did this for me. So Dante stayed alive by himself with the ability to jump in there and basically end up scoring me the 6 points for that new secondary where you have someone in your deployment zone, you have someone in no man's land, and you have someone in their deployment zone. They all do actions. And because I took... So that gave me 6, and I took the middle at the end of the game, which gave me 15, so I got 21, and when we pull up the scoreboard in the next slide, I apparently also had Cleanse and Recover Assets. Unfortunately, by the skin of my teeth, the Infiltrators cleanse middle, he recovers assets in my own deployment zone, he recovers assets in the middle no man's land, Dante recovers assets in his, giving me the 8 plus the 15 for 23 points in turn 5, to win the game by 3 points. So yeah, going into turn 5, I was 20 points behind. I think I might have been even a little bit further behind if you go back to turn 4 where he scored 9 and I only scored 3. So yeah, I was, as people were milling around the game in turn 3 or 4, it definitely looked like I was out of it, right? Like, you could see my primary. Look, I did nothing, nothing, nothing for 3 turns. Gav is very good at doing this against me. He did this against me when I played him Chaos Knights at the last GT. He shut down my primary so hard. So I got lucky, in a sense, because, well, 2 things were lucky. 1, this was the mission where primary in turn 4 and 5 get more valuable. So it's 8 points for holding in turn 4, which I did with Dante on that midfield objective by himself. He lost his whole Sanguinary Guard to do it, but he got me the 8 points. And then the 15 at the end of the game. And this was huge because I did manage to stop him scoring primary, though, in turn 4 and 5 as well, which I guess helped loads, but one of the things was his objective on the side of the map went away. If it hadn't been the one that went away, then he'd won this game. And then the third thing was I had to pass Battle Shock on this guy. Yeah, so this guy definitely had less than 6 wounds. I think he had 1 wound left, because I had to take a Battle Shock test on him. If he was on 6, he wouldn't have needed the Battle Shock. No, I'm convinced he was on 1 wound. He was definitely on less than 6 anyway, because we had to take Battle Shock on him. And I said to Gav, I was like, I'm going to use Insane Bravery on him. And he's like, no, you've already used that. You need to pass his Battle Shock to win the game. Because if you can't Battle Shock him, you can only get 20 points. Because you can, you can cleanse and you can only do 2. So I had to pass this Battle Shock. In the last tournament I played against Gav, I had to roll a 2 up for my Librarian Dreadnought for a really crucial time to do a teleport, which was really important, and it lost me the game. There was maybe some other mistakes, like I said, with the aggressors in that game, but in this one, I had to make that Battle Shock. It was as simple as that. If I don't make the Battle Shock, I think it's either a tie game or he wins by 1 point. No, I think it would have been a tie game at 60-60. That's what it would have been. So had to make the Battle Shock, and I rolled a 6. So the Ballistus Dreadnought by the skin of the teeth. Do you know what? A lot of people say to me, like, why do you include Ballistus Dreadnoughts? They're not very useful. Or people will say, like, people often say Ballistus Dreadnoughts are not that good. This game, the Ballistus Dreadnought, he saved me by the skin of the teeth. And do you know what? I actually don't mind his 2 las cannons and his 2 crack missiles at 48 inches. That's how I play him. I think he's cheap. He's 140 points. I sit him back. I just blast stuff every turn, and usually he's around at the end of the game. So, yeah, what a close game. I cheered loudly when this... You can see lots of feet, actually, here. Like, lots of people were starting to mill around, and I cheered very, very loudly when I won this game. It's the first time I've ever beaten Gav. Ironically, it's at my own tournament. A few people said, like, John, don't win your own tournament. But, hey, after losing to him so many times, I was like, if I'm going to beat him... I am not holding my punches, because he knows fine well that, like, and here's the even more messed up thing is, he scored nothing in turn 5 on no prisoners, right? Because he'd used new orders, I think, earlier in the game, and he'd forgotten that he'd used it. So I think he could have new orders that no prisoners, and I did message him after the game, like at 10 o'clock at night on that evening. I went, yeah, did you not use new orders in the final turn? But hey, here's the thing: when you're in that thing, right, you've played 3 games, it's super stressful. He's been trying to get ahead. He knows that there's going to be a swing from the Blood Angels on the final turn. Mistakes happen. Not everybody's perfect, so this was maybe a mistake, and I needed a little bit of luck to beat him, but we finally beat him. So it was a tough game against a super tough opponent. I would love to get Gav on a live battle report on the channel at some point. Maybe bring this Votann list in. Whatever army he brings in, it's always good. He's such a good opponent. He's such a strong opponent. The volume of hard-hitting shots from their transports, the Alpha Strike from the Hearthguard. This was actually a really tough and stressful game. And he had such a solid lead on me early game, right? Like, loads of judgment tokens going around. He's got like a 15-point primary lead, and I'm very aware of that. I remember when he drew these secure no man's land and extend battle lines in turn 1, I was like, you've got to be joking me. It's like the easiest 10 points he's ever going to get. So like straight away I'm like 25 points down in turn 2, and I know I'm 25 odd points down, and that can affect you mentally. And you got to just try and stay positive and just keep doing what you know to do, and that's kind of how I looked at it. I really was once again saved a little bit by good use of Rapid Ingress. This was the toughest game for Rapid Ingress because the threat that I wanted to deal with was impossible for me to Rapid Ingress into. In a lot of other games I had much better luck with the Rapid Ingress. I mean, Gav's a sly opponent. He probably knew... he would have known that I wanted to kill this, and because I was going second, he's going to put them in an obnoxious position. So he put them in a great position, actually. They were able to kill all my company heroes in the middle, stop me primary. He was able to kill all the Death Company here. And again, stop me doing Death Company stuff, which would have been really powerful on his side of the board. So yeah, really, really tough game. And then, yeah, the winning roll was a 6-up Battle Shock on the 1-wound Ballistus Dreadnought. It felt fitting that last time my shitty roll at a critical time, it may or may not have lost me the game, but it felt fitting to finally roll on the final turn. It couldn't have been closer. So I was very happy about this game, but I was super exhausted. Everyone else went to the bar. I went to the bar, literally had a pint of like lemonade and like I think I had like a burrito salad. And then I went home and I was in bed by like 10 o'clock. I usually go to bed at like 12:30. So I went to bed like 2.5 hours early. I was super exhausted. But I also thought to myself, if I go to bed early, I'll feel super refreshed for game 4 and 5. And I always make mistakes in game 4 and 5. And I managed that even with one of the earliest nights of sleep ever. But hey, if you're getting any value out of this series, there are 2 other videos that you can watch. You can watch the Game 1 breakdown against Eldari. There's the Game 1 breakdown against the Orcs. There's also the big, I don't know what you would call it, the 45 minute breakdown of how I played this list and my strategy for it every game. And then the last thing to say is the Blood Angels Commander merch shop is open now, and there's this cool Mephiston t-shirt. So if you want to grab that, you can do that. Links in the video description, or do one of the other YouTube things if you got to the end of the video. Like, subscribe, support me on Patreon, And yeah, huge respect. Like, I actually messaged Gav after the game saying he is one of the best 40k players I've ever played against. And I said to him, I would really like to meet you at a top table 4-0, like 4 wins, 0 losses for another final in the future. So hopefully that's on the cards. But yeah, what a fun and tough day one this was. But I set myself up. I love going 3-0, man. I must admit, like, you go 3-0, you go home, you research the list you're playing in game 4, and then at that point, you know, you get to the top table and and then you take it from there, I guess. So I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. By the blood, Army made strong, my friends. Peace.